Every single healer I know has one or four of these healer complexes, and this is a fact. Now, if you're a healer who's a coach, a wellness practitioner, a breathwork facilitator, a nurse, a doula, a therapist, a social worker, you're adjacently in the healing arts in some way, shape, or form, I know that you have some of these complexes just sprinkled in there for fun, and perhaps you're already really aware of it, or you're somebody who has no awareness of it, or you have awareness of it and you're running away from these complexes. Now, the reason I want to talk to you about these healers complexes is because the more that we're able to face some of these shadow parts of us, the better suited we are to show up for our community, to show up for our clients, to show up for all the things that we want to facilitate and curate and create, and the things that we want to experience in our life. From experiencing and healing these shadows, we can do that for ourselves. So take some deep breaths as we talk about this, because I know anytime we're talking about shadow aspects of ourselves, especially when we're the helpers, we're the go-to, we're the guides, we're the teachers, we're the people who are, holding space for transformation, we're helping people alchemize their pain. We have these complexes that is necessary for us to work through intentionally as we hold space for other people as well. So this can be triggering to you. So drink some water, drink your tea, rub your body, do your tapping as you're experiencing this conversation, and let's get into it. So first things first, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, etc., and share this episode with 30 of your healers friends, because all these healers with all these complexes out here, we need people to, have access to this information some way, some shape or form. So go ahead and share this, and let's talk about the first healers complex. The first healers complex is the helpers complex, okay? So here we go. It's the helper who does not know how to be helped themselves. I'm going to say it again. It's the helper who does not know how to be helped themselves. Because as healers, you're the person who wants to see other people have less suffering in their life, right? You want to lower their suffering. You want to give them the tools. You want to support them. You want to alleviate pain. You want to be of service. There's all these beautiful gifts and, tools that you have that you want to share with other people. But what is it like for you to receive help from somebody else? The helper who doesn't know how to be helped is a dangerous healer. The person who's a coach who doesn't have a coach. The person who's a mentor who doesn't receive mentorship or is not coachable or mentorable. The person who, seeks to be the guide but cannot be guided themselves, right? And in this complex, it doesn't mean that you are just like, la-di-da, just receiving help and guidance from any person, whoever has any kind of opinion. It really still means that you still use discernment and critical thinking, and you're still using your thought process to, determine and decipher who gets access to you and who you give access to. And in the same breath, I'm going to say that perhaps a part of you does not know how to let your guard down. The healer that does not know how to be helped, the healer, the coach who does not know how to be coached, the mentor who does not know how to be mentored is a really dangerous participant. And one of the reasons this is really challenging for a lot of healers is because of your ego. Your ego says, hey, you've been doing all this healing work. You've been, challenging yourself to break your self-concept and rebuild yourself and take back your power and do all this trauma healing and inner child work and this thing and that thing. And now you're enlightened and you've reached the 12th dimension and you've ascended the, quantum realms, and you're all of a sudden so healed, when the truth is none of us are. And part of your ego feels like it needs to uphold that visual. It needs to uphold the fact that you don't need any help. You know what you're doing and you don't need to be supported in it, and you don't, right? And that's part of that shadow that starts to come back up and actually prevents you from moving forward and holds you back from receiving support from your community. Now, as I mentioned, it doesn't mean that everybody gets to have access to you and you should just randomly ask people's opinions and things like that. You should still use discernment. You should still use critical thinking. But part of this complex is really allowing yourself to receive help and receive support and guidance, and to lean on people and to create community in a way that feels collaborative, co-creating that safety with one another. The second healer's complex very nicely flows in from the first one and brings its ego with it into the vulnerability complex. And the vulnerability complex is basically your complex around being vulnerable, and you might have stories about what it means to be vulnerable, especially if you grew up in an environment where you didn't feel safe to be vulnerable, you didn't have space to be heard or to be seen. Somebody told you that crying was weak, or they didn't have time for you to cry. They wanted you to solve your own problems. They didn't have time for your emotions or your feelings. You you may have developed this complex that vulnerability is somehow a sign of weakness. So now you have this energy that is like, if I'm being vulnerable, then all of a sudden it means that I'm not capable, or I'm weak, or I'm fill in the blank, whatever your storyline is. And this complex really prevents you from being who it is that you are as an authentic healer. You know, you're always pretending that you're okay. You're always pretending that you don't need. You're always pretending. You're code switching, you're masking, you're doing all these environmental switches. Your identity changes depending on what group you're in, because you cannot really allow yourself to be seen. You cannot allow yourself to let the guards down. And from a nervous system perspective, when your body's in this type of survival state, it does not feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to be seen. It doesn't feel safe to express. It doesn't feel safe to share. It doesn't feel safe to be real. So now when you're showing up into the world as a not real version of you, of course that has an implication on how authentic you feel, how aligned you feel, how embodied you feel. Of course, all of those things are going to be impacted. Now, our next complex is the I should know it complex, which is basically you feeling like you have to be a know-it-all. You know, it's like because you know about something, it makes you feel like you need to know about everything, when it's not the case. You're still a human person, like trying to make it through the world. And when this complex comes up to the surface, it paralyzes you, because you feel like everything that you put out, everything that you say, everything that you hold space for has to be perfect, because you're supposed to know it all. You're supposed to have all the answers, and everything that you do has to have this like very, cohesive presentation. And when your fear is that you have to be perfect, obviously it's going to be difficult for you to show up. You're going to judge yourself. You're going to be afraid of judgment. You're going to judge yourself in a way that's unnecessary. You're going to have a critical voice in your head. You're going to people please. You're going to mold yourself to fit into whatever other people think you need to fit into. You're going to shape shift. You almost kind of lose your identity because you don't know who you are at the core of yourself, because you're pretending to be this know-it-all person. And lastly, you have the burnout complex, which is basically the healer who is always burning out because you're doing for others and you're doing for others and you're doing for others and you're doing for others, to the point where you have nothing left for yourself. It's the overextension. It's the overdoing. It's the I'm a people pleaser. I'm a giver. I don't want to see people hurt. I don't want to see people suffering, to the point where you don't know about your boundaries. You don't know what you need. You're pouring from an empty cup over and over again, and then you feel bitter. You feel angry. You feel resentment. You feel like, why isn't that energy reciprocated to me? Why am I not on this receiving end of that? Okay, so we're going to continue to break down these complexes in the next couple of episodes. So go ahead and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you are a healer who wants to work through any of these healers' complexes, I'm going to leave you some resources to join me in shadow work in the next couple of weeks. And just remember, the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.